Your business broken down is just a bunch of data points, a bunch of numbers, right? And if you know the calculations to all these numbers, it's so much easier to win. How much should you be spending on advertising? How much should you be spending on marketing? What is your close rate? What's your appointment rate? Cost per click. That makes a big difference. If it's a $12 cost per click, you need to convert more on your conversion rate and your sales to make this work. What's going on, you beautiful people? How you doing? I hope it's a good morning for you. Today I want to talk to you about your numbers. Let me ask you a question. Do you know your numbers? Like the numbers for your business that help you understand how to make more money, right? Like your business broken down is just a bunch of data points, a bunch of numbers, right? And if you know the calculations to all these numbers, it's so much easier to win, so much easier to scale your home service business. Most home service owners that I talk to do not know their numbers. Generally speaking, the vast majority of them I'm talking to are underneath 3 million. Underneath 3 million, you are just putting things together and trying to grow as fast as possible. The problem with that is scaling. It becomes so much harder to scale if you don't actually know your numbers. How much should you be spending on marketing? What is your close rate? What's your appointment rate? What's your ROAS, return? All that kind of good jazz. This should be broken down. At scale, this is what bigger companies do. This is what they know in order for them to keep growing at a pace that you can't do. And so I want to help you. I want you to understand it. Let's make this super easy. If you go to servicescalers.com/ROAS, ROAS -calculator, it'll bring up this. Maximize your Google Ads. Now this is Google Ads, but like you can do LSA there. You can talk pretty much anything, and you should understand your numbers at every level. First thing is monthly spend. How much should you be spending on advertising? If you ever listen to the Owned and Operated podcast, and if you're a home service owner and you're not listening to that, what are you doing? But they will always talk to you about spending 10% of your total revenue on marketing, right? That's just a generic, that's what you should be doing. Now, the bigger companies can spend more because they need volume and for them to grow, and they have a bigger profit percentage for them to be able to spend more. But if you're doing 1 million, then you should spend roughly $100,000 on marketing on an annualized basis. You divide that by 12 and you get something right around $8,000. A little bit above, let's go 8 and just make it easy. So we're gonna throw this number right here to $8,000. Now, expected cost per click. Now this depends on your industry and how competitive it is in your area. I've seen everything from $40 clicks to $1. I would say on the vast majority, we can get somewhere between 3 and 5. So let's call it $4 cost per click. Now let's talk conversion rate. This is your website conversion rate. My expectation is it's somewhere between 5 and 15%. Most of the time, it's like 8, 9, maybe 10 if you have a good website that's built for conversions. And so this is where I would say that you want to probably guess. It's right around 8%. 10 makes a big difference. This is why the bigger companies focus on conversion rate. This is why there are literally departments built out to just trying to get this number from 9 to 10% or 10 to 11%, because it makes a massive difference on all this. Now, what's your average sale price? This could be anything, right? Like John, he sits right at like I think it's $2,400 per sale on his plumbing business. I know most people can't get to that number. And so HVAC companies, that's a lot bigger. I think I spent like $8,000 on my HVAC system. Really depends. Let's just go an easy $5,000 on your average sale price. This is not always how it's going to be. It just is a good basis. We can again adjust this. Now, lead to customer rate. This one's a little bit harder to understand because there's twofold. It's how many leads are you getting that are turning into customers, and there's a point in between that, which is appointments. How many appointments you're getting. So generally speaking, I want to see somewhere between 80 and 90% of the leads that are coming through turn into appointments. If they're not, then it's not quality leads. From the 80 or 90, I want to see somewhere between 30 and 50% close rates. Those close rates are based on how good your sales team is and how good are you as a manager at getting those sales, training those salespeople. When I'm talking to smaller businesses and the owner is still doing sales, you could see that upwards of 70%. I was talking to a guy the other day that he was talking about how that's his lead to customer rate, which is phenomenal. Again, your market's going to dictate that. Your price will dictate how easy it is to close and how good you are at sales. So I'm going to put this at 40%. This is my expectation of a good sales team. That's what you're going to spend. Now, if these numbers all match up, from just your ads, you should spend $8,000 and generate roughly 2,000 clicks to your website. Of those 2,000, because you have a 10% conversion rate, you should have 200 leads from that. Your cost per lead should be $40. If you're looking at $40 cost per your lead and you're like, that's crazy, I hate to break it to you, we can absolutely get that for you. I've got a handful, not all, but I've got a handful of our clients that are sitting at $15 cost per lead. It is crazy, I know. Now, that's not everyone. I've got some $70 ones. I've got some $40 ones. I've got some $50. 40 is probably that's like what I like to shoot for. So I usually start with setting an industry standard of, hey, $80 cost per lead. Again, depends on what you are, HVAC, plumbing, electrician, like those change things. But we can absolutely get you $40 cost per leads. That's part of it. Now, out of those, that's going to generate roughly $1 million in pipeline. So you will see $1 million in the pipeline, but you're only going to close 40% of that. So that's going to be $400 in revenue. That's how those numbers work. It just break it down. Now, let's say you're not good. You don't have a good conversion rate. So you only close 5% of those, right? So 2,000 clicks come to your website. You get 100 leads, $80 cost per lead, which is industry standard. That should generate roughly $500,000 in pipeline and $200,000 in expected revenue. Now, let's say you're only closing 20%, right? This is a bad salesman. This guy is the guy you fire and you're like, hey, we're going to go find somebody else. Then you should expect to spend roughly $8,000 and push through $100,000 in revenue. Again, these numbers might change. You might go to, $2,400. Then you should expect to spend $8,000 and push through $50,000 in revenue. Now, this is not talking about your cost, your COGS, anything like that, equipment, team, pricing, stuff like that. So there is more on that return, but this is kind of what you should expect. If your cost per click goes up, then it becomes more difficult to do that same game. Think of the numbers I want you to see. I want that cost per click to be as low as possible while still pushing through high quality conversions, high quality traffic. I want this to be at 10% conversion rate, specifically for your ad. If it's not, I think you're in trouble. I think you're doing it wrong and you should do something with your website. For a lead conversion rate, this should be closer to 40%, right? If it's not, you need to talk to a sales coach. You need to talk to somebody to help you get better conversions. You absolutely can, and it should be closer to 40%. Now, average sale, this is going to be impacted based off of what you can get in your market. In Las Vegas, it's going to be very different than a small town in the Midwest. That changes games depending on where you're at in location, right? Again, there are so many different places that have lots of money and are willing to spend more for the right offering. So figure out what that differentiator factor is so that you can raise your price so that you can get more out of this. Now, that cost per click, that makes a big difference. If it's a $12 cost per click, you need to convert more on your conversion rate and your sales to make this work. I still don't mind spending $8,000 to pull in $64,000 in expected revenue. That's not perfect, but there are things that you can do to make this better. Obviously, increasing your sales price, increasing your lead customer rate. I don't really see, sometimes you get, again, a really good sales team that can push 50, but my expectation is 40. So let me know if you have any questions about this. Happy to dive in deeper on your specific industry or play with these numbers. Come up here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Hit them in the comments if you need to talk through something else. But these are the numbers you need to know, right? Because this is going to tell you whether this can be successful or not. I've had plenty of conversations with people that their cost per click is just way too high and their average sale price is way too low for it to work out in certain services. We say, hey, let's go find other ways. Let's go find organic. Let's go find Facebook groups. Let's go find other ways for you to grow until you can increase that sales price. Let me know if you have any questions. Subscribe, comment. Would love to engage with you. If you need marketing for your home service company, don't be afraid to reach out. I would love to save you from the terror that is these other big bad agencies that just suck at driving leads, and I would love to get you more leads for a good CPO. Thank you so much for your time. Hope you have an amazing day. Cheers.